Got a good next panel. You're right. Everything at the base layer in Web3 is about identity, and so until we have our own self-sovereign identity, we really don't have anything in Web3. So I'm super interested for the next panel. It's going to talk about how NFTs are going to solve for that. Let's give them a big hand. And also, if you are in the audience or elsewhere in the venue, and you want to have a conversation with somebody, please do it in a very low voice because it's kind of an echo chamber in here. So if you talk, everybody else can hear it. So thanks. Have fun, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, we're here to talk about NFTs as the center of your digital identity. Just to start off quickly with some intros. My name is Marc Blinder. I'm one of the founders and CEO of a company called Icon. We specialize in connecting Web 2 identities to Web 3. At its most basic level, letting people log in with what they're comfortable with, maybe it's Google, Apple, email, SMS, whatever they're used to, and giving them wallets on multiple blockchains, kind of a cross-chain identity linked to Web 2. And I'm surrounded by some guys who are legit NFT experts, and we're here to talk about how we're going to bridge this gap from Web 2 to Web 3. Jamil, you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure, I'm Jamil. I'm the founder and CEO of Gamma.io, which is an NFT marketplace, the leading NFT marketplace for Bitcoin secured NFTs. Not many people have heard about Bitcoin NFTs, but they exist.
Bitcoin Maxi's in the audience. All right, Z, you want to go next?
Hey, my name is Z Liu, and my day job is an engineer at Instagram. I'm at the same time a Web3 developer. I created a joint control wallet protocol, JSA-ETH, and right now I'm preparing my first NFT collection, Crypto Genome. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Cool. Hey, I'm Zhuoxun, one of the founders of Magic Eden. We're one of the largest NFT marketplaces. Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So we want to start off just about how people are thinking about identity today in Web 2.0. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on what the true Web 2.0 identity is for users today.
Yeah, I think we're so used to these patterns where in the physical world you have a guarantee that you own something. You own your identity, your data, your physical possessions. And we're so used to this pattern in Web 2 where if you own a game asset or you're on Steam, you feel like you have ownership over what you have on the internet, whether it's your subscriptions, whether it's your in-game assets, but you really don't. Any company can take this information from you at any given point in time. It's as if, I'm sitting at this table right now and someone can immediately vanish this bottle of water. And Web3 is the first time, I think, that we've had this concept of concrete ownership, that you have these same guarantees of ownership that you do in the physical world in the digital. And the same is true of your data and your assets. So I think that's the real bridge between Web 2 and Web 3.
Yeah, and obviously, probably a lot of believers in the room on this kind of decentralized self-sovereign identity. And of course, right now in Web 3, that identity is really your public and private key pairs, right? And there's a huge need to make that work across different platforms and across different blockchains. I don't know if you want to comment on that. I know you were talking about that yesterday, this sort of identity that's carrying between platforms in Web 3.
Yeah, I think right now a trend is that because right now there's so many different chains or different marketplace, and if in Web3 space we want to see, hey, I am who I am, and across chain or across different NFT space, I think the natural ID, of course, is our wallet. But right now, if you go to Twitter or go to different Discord space, people will remember you very naturally by your NFT profile picture, and they know, oh, this is you. They don't even know who you are or your name, but with that picture, this is the guy I'm talking about every day online. I think that's pretty cool about the Web3 space or NFT space, yeah.
Yeah, I think even if you look at these panelists up here, right, we got 2 people represented by NFT avatars and 3 people by more traditional photos. Actually, do you want to talk a little bit about your avatar and why you use that as your identity?
I think it was one of the artists that we launched on Magic Eden actually, and he was like, hey, do you want me to do a custom of you? And that's sort of how it came together. But I do think that this stuff converges a lot at both the wallet layer and some of the large applications that will go across multiple chains. Today it is very, very siloed. Like, it almost feels like different nation states, and then every nation, every chain, you have some identity, and it can't traverse across at the moment. But I think that'll change in the next couple of years, and I think the wallet obviously will have a huge part in that, but also like applications that end up building in multi-chain.
Yeah, and do you think this trend of NFTs as kind of my pseudonymous identity is going to continue, this sort of avatar-based NFT identity?
I think so, yeah. I think ultimately, I mean, you see a mix of it today, right? Not everyone, is fully pseudonymous like this. And you have others that prefer to be totally anonymous. You have others that are willing to just be themselves. I think there will continue to be a mix. I think the really interesting part, at least for me, is that a lot of the identity now means like on-chain activity. So I do think that that's a little bit underrated right now, in the sense that some people actually don't necessarily want some of that revealed, right? Which is why you want to end up, having something like, well, mine is a sort of a photo of myself, but but if you choose like an ape or something, that's probably one of the reasons. So there are some complexities here to deal with, even if the technology itself is feasible to kind of create something that's representative of you.
Yeah, that was something we were talking about a lot yesterday, is this tension between the transparency of blockchains and the desire for privacy in people's transactions. So one of the things we thought might be a little fun and interesting for the folks in the crowd is we're going to have everyone on the panel talk about maybe a few things not to store in an NFT on the chain, and then a couple things that we think are a good idea to store. You want to start with something you might not want to store as an NFT on chain?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a temptation to put everything on the blockchain, or to start businesses that say, well, we're going to put and there may be legitimate use cases for it, but for example, privately identifying information like healthcare data, or there may be a place for it, but it's not something that you just immediately go towards. And I think as we move towards a broader adoption of payments, for example, from on-chain or savings accounts, people have to manage these separate accounts and make sure that you gotta like put your funds in mixers before you send it to your savings account, essentially, or separate your DeFi and your NFTs. And I think people have to be quite careful about the way that we think about what data we store and what data we expose through our public, let's say, ENS associated addresses.
Yeah, my example I was going to use today was insurance claims, right? Those are something where it's often something that happens to a person. It is financial. You want a record of it somewhere, but not necessarily fair to make that a public record, right? Like, just because someone crashed into your car, or like happened to me, my upstairs neighbor's kitchen leaked into my roof, right? Not my fault, not something that necessarily needs to follow me for the rest of my life forever publicly.
Yeah, yesterday I mentioned that wakes me up at night is that Amazon know all the stuff I bought.
Amazon purchases, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think if that's public on chain, I think maybe for some of the people, they will get worried FBI will at their door. And yesterday, actually, I met a guy at the booth. They have an NFT collection called Stripperville. So it's basically the stripper NFT collection. And if you bought that, I think I'm worried about that. My friends know I got this collection, yeah.
No, I agree with all of that. I think any personal related information just feels a little bit dicey to have publicly available. But I think stuff that's like, what am I doing in games, or what am I doing in various applications could actually be really interesting to traverse across. Like building up some sort of reputation or identity in like one area and then being able to port it across. I think that's really cool because it's contained to one type of activity or type of profile that you're trying to build. But anything that's like personal information, preferences, healthcare data, obviously, all that stuff is like, man, you probably don't want that in public domain.
I think like in Ethereum, for example, and on Solana too, you see a wider variety of NFT use cases that start to build up more than just a PFP or more than just an image. Like on ETH, for example, you have some that represent membership in clubs or partial ownership over some asset or some company even, right? Or governance over a company. And eventually it becomes like, I think before it was like your NFT collection is like your art collection. Now it's more like a more holistic view of almost who you are as a person, as more things become tokenized, as more things become represented as NFTs. And so I think now when you go to someone's profile on OpenSea or Magic Eden or wherever, it starts to almost become like you get a glimpse into almost who they are and what they value, not only from an artistic perspective, but also from a values perspective, also from an ownership perspective, and also from a governance perspective as well.
Yeah, that's something that I think is going to be really interesting in terms of governance. I do think a lot of DAOs right now, which are operated by fungible tokens, will eventually probably want to transfer some of that to non-fungible tokens, because you may not want someone to be able to just sell their governance ownership instantly to anyone in the world. In most organizations, that's not possible. There's some vetting, there may be some rules to get you in the front door. And even very big ones like Friends with Benefits today, they have like an application process. So it's this two-tier of like, you need your tokens and you need this off-chain application. I imagine someday that collapses to an on-chain NFT, right? It seems like a little bit more sensible to me that way.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of teams experimenting with this kind of thing on Solana at the moment. So Marinade Finance, it's kind of like it's like Lido, if those of you are familiar with like staking. They effectively have, like, if you stake the Marinade token, you basically get some, it's an NFT that represents your share of governance. And those are listed on Magic Eden. So there's some interesting dynamics around, like, trading governance rights. There's also effectively, like, some of those things are also getting, earning and staking at the same time, right? So there's like a financial element, there's like a governance element, and all of these things can just be freely traded, which I think is really interesting. It means that it's not tied to anyone necessarily anymore. It's just like public domain, and you can just like actively trade it amongst people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that all works out in the end. Because, even in that gaming example you were bringing up before, it really resonated with me. Because I met a guy who is a founder. We work with a lot of blockchain games, right? Because you need some way to get casual gamers into your blockchain game. Hey, what if they log in with Google, right? Makes it really easy. This guy was a founder of a game, and he said, hey, have you ever played Hearthstone? I was #3 in the world. I invented the Zoo deck. I'm like, okay, sounds pretty badass from where I'm sitting, but literally I have no idea if that's true. Like, did anyone invent the Zoo deck? Like, how do I know it was you? How do I even know what your identity was? And obviously with Web3, like you're saying, there's this like record of who did what, right? Who is holding these NFTs, who's holding this governance, and I think the gaming industry is a perfect fit for that, because it's not something you really want to be private. It's something most people want to flex when they're good at it or when they're into it. And it's like very natural for these kind of avatar-y, cool-looking, pseudonymous engagements.
I think one of the interesting dynamics too is when you have a profile that you can carry with you across platforms, you end up having a much more dynamic ecosystem and much fewer lock-ins than the existing Web 2 patterns. And you see it a lot in things like, for example, NFT marketplaces, right? It's possible, like Magic Eden went from zero GMV to multiple billions in a period of 7 months, right? And came in as like a small competitor, and it was similar to us on Bitcoin and Stacks. We came in as like nobody, and then became the leading marketplace within 3 months. So you have these very dynamic environments where if you can bring your identity with you and you can bring it cross-platform, you have much more dynamic ecosystems, much more innovation, and much more creativity when it comes to creating new platforms and creating new experiences.
I love that creativity explosion concept. And I also like the idea of people, sorry, getting a little feedback there, people using NFTs to express some of their own identity. For folks on the panel, how do you feel about the idea, though, if most NFTs are bought, how do people without a lot of money get to express themselves in this new world?
Yeah, well, I think this is one thing that will start to see in the bear market. In bull markets, you kind of have this exploitation of existing patterns and existing, like whatever caused NFTs to blow up last year, sort of they go down that exact same path. So, you know, it was Bored Ape Yacht Club in last April, and you know, the CryptoPunks took off, and then you saw sort of a lot of these projects following down the same lines. Or one NFT project tries staking, so all of them try staking because they realize it works. And I think the last boom was kind of fueled by a lot of speculation and a lot of flipping. And that's kind of natural. But you'll start to see, as the market matures, more use cases that didn't make a lot of money or weren't, you know, they weren't selling for millions of dollars, find their footing. And you'll find a lot of projects that have more real-world use cases, more governance use cases, a lot more, I think, interesting applications of NFTs come out over the next few years, as we're not solely driven by financialization and by profit making.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I think about the NFT right now in this market is that we need to add more like functionality to it, because like, you know, if you have an identity in Web2 because you know you need it to do something, people message you or give you payments, something like that. And for NFT, I think right now, when the market is not like in hot, I think it's a good place to think about what we really want to do with the NFT we have right now, like develop it or extend it instead of just like, of course, just art is important, but not just only art. That's factor, yeah.
Yeah, something more active that reaches out from the chain or across chains into other data. Very interesting. Yeah, well, and you had brought up yesterday the idea of having more tooling. What do you see coming in this sort of near term in terms of tooling around NFTs that can expand some of those use cases?
I think there's two things. One thing is a lot of people already working on is the discovery of the NFT projects, because right now there are too many NFT projects. Like on OpenSea, you cannot tell which one is good as a like average person has no preliminary research knowledge. I think the second thing is the feasibility or convenience, how to no matter illustrate your NFT or just show you have this NFT. I know right now there are some accessories, hardware accessories, something like that. But still, if like you want to show your NFT on Instagram or Twitter, you still need some techie knowledge. Yeah.
I would say like the user journey is actually really fragmented today when it comes to NFTs. So like, you know, marketplaces are the point of sale today. And then people do all of their research, discovery, analytics across maybe like 5 to 10 tools. And there's maybe 5 to 10 per chain, right? And if you think about where identity actually lives, I think it primarily lives today, obviously in wallets, but mainly in like Discord, right? Because if you think, I don't know, you have a collection you said you're launching or something, right? Or you're working on. And the way people, you know, assign whitelist spots, assign roles, like all that stuff is some form of identity that's not on chain at the moment, but you know, very easily could be. So things like pre-mint, you know, there's a bunch of these tools on Solana like Matrica that assign roles and identity and spots based on things that you've done in the past. But that journey is extremely fragmented. And I think the thing that we are excited about at Magic Eden is actually covering more of that user journey on our side, such that the user can discover, they can research, they can get into all of this stuff without needing to, you know, go super deep in Discord or super deep in Twitter or all of the above, right? Which makes it really hard for the beginning for someone who's just getting started.
I think one of the issues is that almost all marketplaces follow this OpenSea UI pattern, which shows an NFT collection as a gallery of JPEGs. And it doesn't give you much insight into what the NFT actually, like, and you start to see it with some collections like Proof Collective, right? Where I think before people were like, oh, why are people paying so much money for these apes? Because they see these images and think that you're buying the JPEG or you're buying the image. And when you look at something like Proof Collective and you go on OpenSea and it's just a gallery of cards, if you just go to that website, you don't really understand what you're getting. You don't understand what happens after you buy it. You sort of just know that, okay, I have to go to Discord, I have access to all of these events, I have access to, these early podcasts, and the gallery is still, the marketplace experience is just hyper optimized for images and art, which I think was great for the last boom. But I think one thing that we'll see in the next cycle is the next Bored Ape Yacht Club will not look like Bored Ape Yacht Club. The next OpenSea experience for the next bull cycle will not look like the current OpenSea experience.
Yes. Since you mentioned that, recently I talked to a startup. They are trying to build something like the NFT version TikTok. So basically just recommend the personalized NFT project to you. And I think that's pretty cool. I like the long train, the discoverability of the cool projects,
Yeah. What you guys are talking about here is basically combining on-chain and off-chain data into the experience. So like for Proof Collective, it's like, what is the stuff you get access to in real life? For games, it's like, how does this item or thing perform in the game? What are the stats around it? Like, what is the usage around it? If it's a weapon, it's like, what's the kill ratio, kill death ratio, like stuff like that, right? And all that stuff comes in the game, needs to be piped into the marketplace and then visualized in some way. So I think, we have this concept of like immersion on Magic Eden, where users should be able to feel and value this stuff without even actually needing to buy the thing. So on Magic Eden, you can like play the game, you can, because we support a lot of browser-based games, and you go there, you can play it, and then you can discover the items after you've had a bit of fun. That for me feels like a nicer user journey for that category of NFTs. And yeah, I agree, I fully agree actually, like everything today is very oriented around this like tile-based model. It's only because the use cases are just not that sophisticated yet. So that will just take time to build out.
Yeah, and do you guys think there will be separate marketplaces for the different use cases? Right, I mean, obviously you go to, I don't know, Amazon for some things, eBay for others, Etsy for others, Uber for others in Web 2. Are we heading that way with NFTs in Web 3, where the different kind of vertical use cases will have their own marketplaces?
I think that's definitely where things are going to go. Obviously, there's room for, I think, very large generalized marketplaces to exist. Like, that's true in Web 2 as well. But there's just too many niche use cases, right? And these use cases will need very, very specific experience. Even within games, it's like the experience to, I don't know, visualize a card game is super different to like a first-person shooter, right? Yeah. Some generalizable model can work, but it's not going to be the most optimal experience. So there will be a lot of room actually to build very, very, very verticalized experiences. So.
I think there are several layers of generalization as well with these experiences. Like you saw CryptoPunks, for example, the first real NFT marketplace was specific to one NFT. And then you saw almost the complete different direction where now OpenSea, Magic Eden, etc. is like marketplace for literally everything. But just like on the internet and with Web 2, you started to see, okay, you started these companies that were very vertically integrated. So they would do everything from the front end down to like the base layer. I think now, for example, when I talk to games that want to do their own marketplace, they're not smart contract developers. They don't know blockchain tech that very well. We do. And what we, I think, need to do more of is more protocol level things. So if someone wants to build their own marketplace, we can make it very easy for them and still, maintain our network effects, maintain the liquidity that we have, but provide a base layer for them to build on top of their existing, Web 2 or gaming technology, and provide them a blockchain solution that just works, And they can build a marketplace on top of it, but we provide the tech and the back end for that as well.
Well, that's very cool. We're almost at the end of our session today, and since blockchain is all about collaboration and openness, I wanted to wrap up the panel with everyone just giving a quick couple sentences on what you're looking for or who you're trying to meet here at NFT.NYC.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm here to meet all the great creators, the artists, to collaborate on my NFT project. I think this is a perfect place for it. Yeah.
Artists in the room, over there.
Same here, right? Like, we run a marketplace. We're on Solana right now. We announced yesterday a really large fundraise. We're going multi-chain. So I think anyone who's working to build projects, we would love to talk. We have like a primary market called Launchpad that helps collections basically launch very, very easily. It's sort of an end-to-end service. And then secondly, we're going very deep in gaming as a vertical. Obviously, Solana has a very good chain for gaming, but I think gaming will be our bet in terms of just like broad-based consumer usage. So yeah, if you guys are working on that, let me know. Happy to chat.
Yeah, likewise, if you want to launch your NFTs on Bitcoin, we have a launchpad. Gamma.io is the website. Check it out, and we're always looking for new artists.
And yeah, like I said before, I'm Marc from Icon. We exist to make blockchain easy to use for mass market. So for app developers, marketplace builders, we're here to make things easy. If we can help, let us know. Thanks, y'all. We got 6 seconds left. 4 seconds of clapping. Yeah. 4 seconds, 2 seconds, 1, we're done.
Okay, time's up. Good job, guys.